Hi everyone, I'm Sherika Hapuarachchi. This is my YouTube channel Math Plus. Today I'm going to do a new lesson that is the graphs. So first I'm going to do the first part of this lesson. Let's move to the first slide. Now normally when we consider the graphs according to your school level, you have to learn two types of graphs. The first one is the linear graph and the second one is the quadratic graph. The quadratic graph part I will touch from the second video. Now from this video I'm going to talk about the linear graph. So we know normally when we get a linear graph, we use the y equals mx plus c format, right? So that's the format we use to identify the linear graphs, y equals mx plus c. This equation we use to identify the linear graph. So according to this, y equals mx plus c, we know this indicates the gradient and this indicates the intercept. So here for this example, I have taken y equals 2x plus 1. So when you draw the graph, you will get a straight line or a linear graph like this, right? Let's move to the next slide. Now we are going to learn how can we find the gradient and the intercept. So when we are going to find the gradient and the intercept of linear graphs, there are three ways of finding. The first one is using the equation. That's the first method. And I will show the next one. The second method is from the graph and the third method is from the coordinate. So remember, in linear graphs, when we want to find the gradient and the intercept, there are three methods that we can use. The first method is the equation, and the second method is the graph, and the third method is from the coordinate. So I'm going to teach all three methods from this video, right? First, we'll check the equation method. That means for the exam, when they give the equation, by looking at the equation, you should be able to identify the gradient and the intercept, right? Now, I have taken two examples. Now, I want to find my gradient. This is my equation. Y equals 5x minus 2. So always remember, when we get this equation y equals 5x minus 2, always when you just get y, we know the coefficient in front of y is 1. So always when we are considering the linear equation format, we have to arrange our equation with the y coefficient 1. Now, in my first example, I have given y equals 5x minus 2. Now, according to this equation, the coefficient in front of y is 1. So therefore, I can use the same equation. I do not want to make it again. So then by looking even, I can identify the gradient is in front of the number which is in front of this x letter. So according to this equation, my gradient is 5 and the intercept is minus 2. So from the first example, I can identify my gradient. Normally the gradient, we use letter M to indicate the gradient. So according to the first example, my gradient is 5 and the intercept is negative 2, right? Let's check the second example. Now, when I get my second example, it is 5y equals 20x plus 40. Now by looking even, I can identify in front of y, I do not have 1, I have 5. That means the coefficient is 5. When the coefficient is 5, we cannot find the gradient and the intercept. So the first step is we have to make our equation according to this format. To make according to this format, I divide the entire equation by 5, right? So why I divide this entire equation by 5? To get y equals mx plus c format. So when I divide 5 by 5, I'll end up with y in the first side, and 20 divided by 5, I'm getting 4, and 5 times 1, and inside 40, I'll get 8. So I'll get my new equation as y equals 4x plus 8. Now I can see in front of y, I have 1. Therefore, I can identify my gradient as 4 and the intercept as 8. So that is how we identify the gradient and the intercept when you get the equation. So first you see the number or the coefficient in front of y. If the coefficient is 1, you can use the same equation. If not, you have to make it correctly. After that, you can find the gradient and the intercept, right? I'll take some of the examples. I'll take this C part. So by looking even, I can see according to this equation, my gradient is C 3 and I do not get any intercept. If I take this my A1, my gradient is 5 and my intercept is 8. When I take my E, my gradient, now in front of x, I do not see any number. That means it's 1. So my gradient is 1 and the intercept is 6, right? So this is the first method we use to identify the gradient and the intercept when they give the equation, right? Now we'll identify the next two methods. Right, now we are going to learn from the graph. Now here I have given y equals 2x plus 1 and I have plot the points on this graph. Now I'm going to identify the gradient, right? When I want to identify the gradient, what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw a triangle, right? So if you want, you can draw a triangle like this way. Or if you want, you can draw a triangle like this, right? I will show with both methods. From both, you will get the same value, right? First, I'm going to use this small triangle. Now, we know when we find the gradient, I will just take G. Gradient, we know how do we find the difference of the y values divided by the difference of the x values. That is how we find the gradient. So according to the small triangle, I can see I have 1. We'll see the gap. Now I have starting point here 2 and my finishing point is 4 according to the y. Here it's 4 and here it's 2. That means when I'm going to get the value, it should be 4 minus 2, right? So I have taken it as my y value. Now I have to identify my x. Starting point is 0.5 here and the ending point is 1.5. So I can take 1.5 minus 0.5. So then 4 minus 2, I'm getting 2. 1.5 minus 0.5, it's 1. So 2 divided by 1, I'm getting 2. So according to the small triangle, my gradient is 2, right? So like that way I have given this is my gradient. So we'll see from the larger triangle, even when I apply, whether I'm getting the same gradient. So remember, for the exam, you can take any type of a triangle. It should be a right angle triangle, and then you apply. Right, I'm going to find the gradient. So I'm going to see the gap. Now in my big triangle, it's starting here, it's 5. The finishing point, starting point is 1. Here the starting point is 0 and 2. So I'm going to apply y coordinates, the difference between the y coordinates, then 5 minus 1 divided by 2 minus 0, right? So 5 minus 1, I'm getting 4, and 2 minus 0, it's 2. So 4 divided by 2, I'm getting 2. In the previous time also, we got the gradient as 2. And this time also, we got the gradient as 2. So therefore, remember, for the exam, you can apply any method that you want. Right now, up to now, we learn to identify the gradient and the intercept by using the equation. And from the second method, we identified how to find the gradient by using the graph. Now we are going to identify the gradient by using the 2 coordinates, right? Now I'm going to show it from here first. Imagine now y equals 2x plus 1. This is my graph. I'm going to identify the gradient. We'll see whether we can get the same gradient as 2. I'm going to take any 2 coordinates, right? These are my 2 coordinates. I'm taking these, and I'm going to take another coordinate, right? Anyway, okay, I'll take this coordinate. These are my 2 coordinates. Now here, we know when we write the coordinates, we write the x value first. This is how we are writing. We write the x value, then only we go for the y value. This is how we write, right? Then according to that, this should be 2, 5. And my next coordinate, this should be 0, 1. Now these are my 2 coordinates. From there, I'm going to find the gradient. Now we know when we are finding the gradient, y difference divided by the x difference, right? So when I want to find, this is my x value, this is my y value. So I'll take 5 minus 1 divided by 2 minus 0. So 5 minus 1, I'm getting 4. And 2 minus 0, it's 2. So 4 divided by 2, I'm getting 2. So remember, from the 2 coordinates even, you can find the gradient. So sometimes for the exam, you will get, they give the equation. From the equation, if they ask you to find the gradient, first you see the in front of y, the number or the coefficient, whether it's 1. If it is 1, straight away you can identify the number which is in front of x, that is your gradient. And when they give a graph, from the graph, how do we identify the gradient? You draw a right angle triangle, and from there, you get the starting points and the ending points, and from there you get the gradient. We know the gradient means the y value difference divided by the x value difference, or the vertical rise divided by the horizontal shift. That is how we identify. And the third method, when they give the 2 coordinates, how to find the gradient. Now let me do with this. Right now here I have given the 2 coordinates. From there I will identify the gradient. So what should I do? Y difference divided by the x difference. I'll take 3 minus 11 divided by 1 minus 5. So 3 minus 11 means it's 8, and it is negative 8. And here I'm getting negative 4. So negative 8 divided by negative 4, I'm getting the value as 2. So remember, this is how you're going to find it for the exam. There are 3 methods of finding the gradient: by using the equation, or by using the graph, or when they give 2 points from there even, you can identify the gradient. I feel that you understood how to find the gradient, right? Okay, now I have taken one question. Now this is my equation, right? So when I get this equation, what is my first step? I have to complete a table. Imagine I have given this equation, and if I ask you to plot these, first you complete a table by taking x values from -1 to +5 and draw the graph. So what you have to do, the first step is you have to complete your table, right? Now I will show how can we complete this table. My equation is y equals 2x plus 1. Now my x values are -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I'm going to substitute, right? I'll show my first one is 2x plus 1. Now I'm going to substitute. Now instead of instead of x, I'm going to write -1, right? So 2 times -1, it's -2 plus 1. So when I get -2 plus 1, when I simplify these two, I'm getting -1. Now here by looking even, I can identify when x is 0, 2 times 0, it's 0, 0 plus 1, I'm getting plus 1 or just 1. Then we can apply again y equals 2 times x. So 2 times 1, 2 plus 1. So 2 plus 1, 3. Now you can do it mentally. Then 2 times 2, 4, 4 plus 1, it's 5. Then 2 times 3, 6, 6 plus 1, it's 7. 2 times 4, 8, 8 plus 1, 9. Then 2 times 5, 10, 10 plus 1, 11. Like that way, your first step, you complete your table. After that, you take your coordinates. Right, my first coordinate, -1, -1. That's my first coordinate, right? Then I can take all my coordinates like that. Then my next coordinate, 0, 1. I will use the text box, and from that I will show it because then it's much more clear. Right, I will write all my coordinates. My first one, -1, -1. That's my first coordinate. Second coordinate, 0, right, 0, 1. That's my second coordinate. My third coordinate, 1, 3. Then I have 2, 5. Then I have 3, 7. And then 4, 9. And my last coordinate is 5, 11. Right, now I'm going to plot these points, right? That is what I'm going to do. So I have, okay, now I'm going to plot this -1, -1. So -1, -1. Right, now here I can take, this is -1, -1. Right, here it's negative. Here also I will get it. Now I will get 0, 1, 0, 1. Here it's the point. Then I get 1, 3. then 2 comma 5. Like that way, I'll be able to identify all my points. After when I identify all my points, or when I plot these points, I can join them to get my line. So that's the thing that we have to do. So what is the first thing you have to do when you get an equation? First, if they have mentioned some of the values to take for x, you take according to that. If not, you can take any values that you want, but make sure when you are taking values, you try to complete or try to represent from both negative and positive values. When you get the x values, and those x values you substitute according to the equation, and then you identify the y values. After when you identify your y values, you make your coordinates like this. After that, you plot your points, right? So that is how we do. Now from this lesson, this is the graph part 1. From this graph part 1, we have learned the linear graphs, and I explained how do we identify the linear graphs. In linear graphs, we use the format y equals mx plus c. M stands for gradient and C stands for intercept, and then we identified how to find the gradient and the intercept by using the equation, and then we identify how to identify the gradient by using the graph, and finally we identified to get the gradient by using the 2 coordinates. And then I have done kind of a mixed question when I give the equation how to complete the table and how to plot the points and how to complete the graph. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, you do subscribe and share with your others, and if you have anything, please send your comments as well. We'll meet up from the next video.